Welcome back to the Epic Podcast. And this episode, we are looking at low-key or small businesses that can make impact through low-key philanthropy. Now, our guest today is an established public speaker, a published author. She's helped thousands of business leaders in the art of meditation, transformative inner practice, and healing. Now, what really caught my eye about her business is that she's got a policy of giving back. And every month, right, with all the work that she does, she donates a percentage of proceeds to those in need. She supports over 40 causes, charities, and groups in Southeast Asia, Singapore, Indonesia, you name it. She's probably given already. Her focus is really on enabling others to understand and work with the design and function of their mind, body, energy systems to engage in transformative inner practice for maximum performance, self-healing, and intuitive living. Dani Van De Velde, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Edric. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I mean, we were really talking about this theme and how, giving back is important for all the businesses. And I think that's something that you just jumped on board with. Now, what we're trying to do is very simple, which is to encourage more companies to start thinking about not just their bottom lines, but their double bottom lines. This is a theme this is a term that has come up quite a while ago, but not many people actually want to explore that. The question is, how can they give? It's not necessarily always about money, but exploring how other ways they could do it as well. And again, the idea of impact seems so huge.
Yes. Well, it's bandied around a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So tell you what, before we dive into the ins and outs of it and what you do, give me your thoughts on what you think about this theme as a whole for double bottom lines and making impact through a small business.
Well, I mean, it's a huge topic for a start, and I applaud you for actually tackling it. So I'm going to be really looking forward to this series and listening to your other guests. But I think there are a number of factors involved in exploring impact of businesses. So any business is about networks of people, and inherent in the running of a business is the well-being of people as well. So a business really does not operate in isolation. A business is very much embedded in a society. It's very much embedded in the economy, regardless of how big or small it is. So I feel that there is like an energetic principle with businesses where it cannot be viewed as isolationist or as not having some kind of give and take with the communities in which it works. So there's that. And then I do feel as well, especially with the next generation coming up, who are either investing in business or are wanting to work for different businesses, that there is much more of a focus on real impact. I feel that I can see it with my clients when I'm talking with them about their careers and or possible investments as well, that this idea of sort of conscious employment and conscious investment is becoming more and more real. And where we may have had a view of that perhaps from an environmental point of view, like what kind of footprint a business is creating on the environment, I think more and more it's also now looking at societal impact, impact on the underprivileged, the voiceless, the outliers, and so on. So I think it's within a business's best interest to really seriously look at their impact. And when I say seriously, I don't mean, we've got that term greenwashing, don't we, where they say, yes, we're ecologically friendly, but then there's plastic single-use straws in the kitchen of the business. I think the same goes for all sorts of impact. There has to be, I think, an internal culture within the business and evidence of a commitment to giving back to the society which they depend on to run their business.
Now, I'd love to ask, we talk about big impact.
Yep.
I think one of the things that we were talking about as well was does impact need to be big when we talk about contributing or so-called making impact? Is that really necessary?
Well, I think it's a numbers game. So, I run a small business and it's a growing business and it's doing well and I can give. And I think that's why I love this podcast then, because I think if enough people, if they're all giving $1 or they're giving $10,000, it all adds up, doesn't it? So I think it's about the intention and the attitude of giving and having altruism as a personal value as well as a value within your business. And then if enough of us are doing it, there'll be a big enough impact.
Right. So that's the thing. Like for you, month to month, you start to contribute more and more.
Yep.
Right. As you go. As a small business, what are you doing in your point of view, right? That is really making that impact in that case then?
Yeah, okay. So I do a number of things. So I've got, every month I have a cause of choice, and which you've seen, I've sent those to you. So there's quite a few of them. I tend to focus on the vulnerable in society, so children and women, or the elderly. I had a meeting with an organisation that supports aged care as caregivers, and I'll be supporting them next month. This month I'm supporting We Care Community Services that help people get free of addictions. So people that are really having a tough ride with life. And then every May I support the environment. So, and the way that I do that, so I nominate the cause. I hold a number of charity-only events. So I donate my time. I might cover the venue cost, and they're like dawn dreaming. So it's within my realm of what I teach. So it's dawn dreaming meditations, which are gorgeous. 100% of those tickets go to the charity of that month. I hold what's called a New Moon Lodge, which is a monthly women's circle. 100% net proceeds go to that. So I'm very good at wangling fantastic guest speakers who don't take a fee. And so there's that, and they're the sort of designated charity activities. But then that's limited because that's in person, and over the last, I would say probably 2 to 3 years, I've really augmented my business to much more online and passive income. So I've got other revenues that I can siphon off profits from. So I've got an online membership that's a global membership that's got monthly membership fees. So if the circles are low in Singapore, because it is very cyclical with holidays and stuff, I will dedicate whoever signs up to the membership that month, I'll donate their first month's membership fee into the charity pot. Wow. I can siphon off book royalties as well for that month if I need to. I also hold a lot of private sessions, and they're a big income earner, and so I've got profit that I can siphon. I like to have dedicated charity events because what I've found is that people tend to love being enabled to give. So they will sign up and they get a great meditation and it's beautiful and we have a connection, a lovely community. But they know that all that $40 or whatever they've paid goes into the charity pot, and it creates this lovely sort of vibe of goodwill. And I always report back on what's been given, and we hear from the charities what they've done with the funds and so on. And I always make sure my community is aware of that. So they would be the main ways that I give. I do give pro bono healing and coaching sessions to people who really need it but can't afford my fee. I keep a discretionary fund to help women, particularly out of abusive situations, either by covering legal fees or paying for their psychotherapy or something like that. That's limited, but it has been effective. And then the other thing that I do is I donate my services to other fundraisers. So if you've got a service or a product, you can do a lot in terms of altruism with it. You know, you can give it away, you can put it into a charity auction that someone else is doing, you can barter and exchange. So I think you just got to think a bit creatively about how you can give. I mean, I'm super busy now, but years ago in Singapore, I donated my time. So once a month I held mindfulness sessions for a beautiful grassroots community organisation, which I think didn't survive COVID, called Blessings in a Bag. And these were latchkey kids in HDBs that needed to catch up on their education. And it was a beautiful community program, and they had volunteer teachers helping the kids out. And then once a month I'd go in there and I'd hold mindfulness sessions with the kids and how to work through emotion in their body and that sort of thing. I've got less time to do that now at my disposal. So for me, it's more about redirecting profit.
Okay, when we talk about the profit part of things, right? I mean, we move into the corporates, and again, the topic of double bottom line comes in, which means that there's got to be a structure. There's got to be, it sounds like an accountant's nightmare when you keep saying that it's siphoning in from this and that fund, right? It sounds like an accountant's nightmare. But truth is, how do you then start planning for, okay, this is the percentage that I will go for? Or are you doing a whole Mother Teresa and saying, I'll give till it hurts?
Yeah, well, I don't feel any pain in the giving, so that's a really important paradigm shift, I think, is that I have a lot of joy in the giving, and my community has a lot of joy in the giving. So, but I do have a sort of a minimum, right? So I like to give between 2 and 5K a month. So I wouldn't say give till it hurts, but I do like to make sure that it's a couple of grand at least. And also a lot of the registered Singapore charities, the government matches in different months. So I try to time it. So WeCare, for example, whatever I donate to them at the end of August, the government will match dollar for dollar. So I do try to time the Singapore registered charity donations to those, so we double the impact.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
and you can find out. That's all easily. That's all readily available.
That's really smart, because sometimes, it's maybe I'm more of a feelings kind of a person where it's like, I feel like doing it. I feel like doing this, and then I'll just give, right?
Yep.
But if we could do it a little bit more intentionally, then technically you're doubling your donation because there's government matching. Yeah.
There's lots of clever ways you can do it.
Okay, that's really good.
And there's something in the awareness raising too. So in my monthly newsletter and on my website, I think I've sent you my Goodwill page, I profile the charity that we're sponsoring that month, and I've got links to their websites and so on. And often I'll have people who may miss a circle, but they'll make a donation anyway.
Right.
So there's a culture that certainly I've built in my communities over the last 10 years here in Singapore, where people know that if you engage in my stuff, it's going to go back.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about how you started that. I mean, okay, starting the business in itself, I think we've heard many stories, and you've probably said that on your website as well as probably in your books as well. But how did you get started in terms of wanting to make impact or do good?
Look, I've grown up in an altruistic family. So I have to say, I think it's been part of my upbringing. My parents were always, they're churchgoers, so they very much have a sort of an understanding and a belief system around charity. And helping people less fortunate. And I grew up with that. So, and my dad was really instrumental in Australia. He was part of the team that set up the Australian Food Bank. He was instrumental in immigration and asylum seekers in earlier years. And Mum even worked for big charities for a while, like World Vision and so on, just in an admin capacity. But it's always been part of my upbringing, and I do have a belief system around it. Like I feel like, I've got a very abundant life. I had a very successful corporate career. I invested very well. We don't need anything. My husband and I can support the children very well. But they've left home, by the way. They're at university, and we thought, yay, they're gone. And then we realised they're still on the payroll for another 5 years, So we're still working very hard, but we're able to cover everything, and we've got a fantastic life. So for me, I think the question is, how much is enough? If you're living abundantly, you've got a lovely field of choice. My business is thriving. I love what I do. I've got everything that I could possibly want. I've never been a designer handbag kind of girl. I'm more of a thrifter kind of girl, but that's just my style. And so how much is enough? And that really came home to me last year. So when we left Australia, we left quite quickly. We came over here with my husband's work. My children were very little. And so we packed up everything without thinking too much, and we put it all in a big storage facility. And a lot, like wedding photos, like we just jammed it all in there and we thought we'll deal with it later. And at the storage facility at the beginning of last year went up in smoke. So all of our stuff was incinerated. And I was really pleasantly surprised how little that impacted me emotionally. I think that I've come to a point where having stuff is absolutely not important to me anymore. And it's the quality of our life and the value that we can generate and the giving and the impact which brings meaning for me.
Right.
And that could be because I'm old and wise now, you know, like I've been a very ambitious person in my career in the corporate days, and I am ambitious with my business. Like I want it to succeed and I work really hard at it and I love it. But there's definitely a difference between ambition and growth and altruism and having stuff.
Yeah.
And because of that, we've been freed from a whole stack of like furniture and antiques and all these things that we'd accumulated over our lives, and we've just really got what we've got here in Singapore.
Right. It's just so we're clear, right? The audience knows you're not sleeping on the floor, are you?
No.
Okay.
No, we're not sleeping
Very
on the floor.
Spartan lifestyle.
Yeah. No, but it is pretty slick. Like, and I like that. I like living light. I like not being burdened by stuff, and I like being free from the need to accumulate stuff. And that frees up a lot. That frees up a lot of mental room, that frees up a lot of emotional space, and it frees up a lot of money.
Yeah, it's true.
You
got a Marie Kondo yourself to some.
Yeah, well, thanks to a blazing inferno in a Sydney storage facility, I was Marie Kondoed.
Well, by nature, I suppose.
By nature, yeah.
Well, okay, that sounds very powerful then. Now that you're talking about the growth that you had in life, in your corporates, in your finances, now one of the things that you were telling me as well, which is about energy and giving.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that, because I find that very fascinating. It's this whole thing about whatever that you put out to the world kind of comes back.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I definitely believe that, and I it's evidenced in my life, you know. So I think I shared with you, and I do work with my coaching clients on abundance and generating wealth as well. And for me, a big part of it is to really look at finances and money as a form of energy, which it is. You know, like the value of money only exists because everybody believes in it. So there's a faith element in money and value of money. And of course you could say, well, value is determined by what money can buy. And of course that's an economic element. But the flow of money, in my observation in my life, increases when it's got somewhere to go. And of course, I'm not saying sleep on the floor. Like, of course, you're working hard so you have a lovely life and a good lifestyle. But I've noticed that money works as an energy form. And so at the end of every month, I count the beans on the charity donation. And it's a day, it's within the same day that I release that charity donation that I get an influx of bookings or engagements to speak or more money generating activity.
Yeah, how does one explain something like that?
I don't
Seriously?
think you can. I don't think you can. Maybe you can find better explanations in some of the religious contexts, like the Buddhist concept of merit, for example, or maybe karma in the Vedic system. But I've been donating from this business in Singapore for nearly 11 years every month, and it's observable. And I may not be having pushing a new product or a new course, but something happens when that money gets released out of the coffers. A whole lot of new opportunity arrives within that time frame.
Then I'm gonna have to ask you this as well, because part of the whole thing is that some people will definitely say that the business that you're in right now is a woo business, but you are definitely trying to de-woo-woo mystify all this stuff, right? Through real research, right?
Yes.
Where I'm alluding to is this: is that if we were to put this out and say that, okay, because you give, therefore you will gain, as the
Yes.
energy will flow. The challenge here is intent.
Yes,
If
it
let's
is.
say, for example, if I were extremely capitalistic and I'll go, okay, that sounds like investment, so therefore I will invest in this charity so that I will get this much back.
Yep.
And should I have a bit of a shark mentality and go, I want this kind of an ROI? Do you think that will happen in that way?
It's such a good question. And I get asked this question too around, when people start working with me to explore their spirituality or learn how to meditate. And for the deeper, more philosophical clients of mine, they'll say, but I'm learning to meditate to improve myself so I can perform better. And is that
selfish or self-centered, right?
or self-centered? And does that work counter to the art of meditation? And look, the best thing that I can give them is, and I'm going to misquote this, but it is from the Buddha, where he said, it doesn't really matter the initial motivation to get you on the path, because the path will correct it. And I quite like that. And so it's a good question about what is that one of the reasons why I give. And I would say that my observation of this connection between giving and generating business has happened post the decision to give. So I've observed it as I've gone along, and as I've been able to give more, I've observed more opportunity being linked to the giving.
Right.
So it wasn't an intention, but it's definitely a dynamic. But I think we can hold a number of different intentions, and my intention for my business is to liberate people. So it's an impactful intention for the business anyway. So I want to frame modern spirituality in a way where people can engage with it to better their lives. And whether that be through energy healing or teaching meditation or coaching or doing keynote talks or working in corporates. So all of it I feel is the impact of my business alone, and my content is around helping people live better lives, happier, healthier, more altruistic, because I do think that that's what happens naturally when you start on a spiritual path, is you start to become aware of that you are interconnected with the whole. And if someone's suffering or going without, it impacts you in some way. And if you've got surplus, you've got a responsibility to help in whichever way you can. I do feel that. So I don't give to generate business. I'd like to think that I'm generating that off my own bat, which I believe I am, but it's definitely an observable dynamic.
That's very interesting. So it's just one of those questions I've always had.
It's a good one.
If I were to do charity, without a good intent, but just kind of like, just going with the flow, for example, or just doing it because somebody dragged me to, and on the assumption that I'm a bit of a sociopath and I don't feel anything toward it, does that mean that I still get something good? It's just one of those stranger thoughts of how this branches out and where does it go?
It's great. I think the giving has to be altruistic.
Right.
It has to be unconditioned.
Yes. I feel the same way.
That's why, and there's a lot of spiritual teachings around this as well. I think to give in a conditional way, it's like saying sorry conditionally.
Yeah, sorry,
it doesn't. Sorry, but I'm right. It doesn't quite.
Sounds like every argument that I've had with my wife. Yeah.
But it doesn't have the impact, does it?
Oh no, the impact is there. I'm the one who gets most of the
You're
impact.
in the doghouse. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's the impact for you. So, and this is an esoteric principle as well, is to get really aligned on what your intention is behind your words and behind your actions. Now, if you're not feeling it, if you're doing it because you have to, the fact is you're still doing something. You're still giving where you don't really have to. And I do then fall back on the sort of the Buddhist teaching that the journey will correct that motivation. There's an enormous power in altruism as well. And there's a lot of research on this. So the impact of altruism on our mental well-being, on our emotional well-being, on our sense of self, on our sense of connectivity in the community, it's really, really good for us to give.
Yes.
And you could argue, is that another selfish motivation?
Yes.
But I think it's more like, I like to see it like a virtuous cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So you give, maybe because you have to, maybe you've got a religious edict that tells you to, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
You feel the innate benefit of giving, you improve as a person, you then become intentional about your giving,
Yes.
and it's sort of like a virtuous
Yes.
cycle.
I see. Without the intent, you can act on it, but
Yep.
by acting on it, it reinforces the intent or it
Correct.
grows the intent. So
Yep.
that's your cycle. I see.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, it's very true. I definitely can agree to that for
Yeah.
sure, because every little thing that we do, and again, one of the topics that we talked about was impact doesn't necessarily have to be big. It can be small things that we do, acts of charity, acts of good, acts of social consciousness.
Yep,
you know?
raising awareness.
Correct. So these are the little things that, I mean, through this journey of planning for this podcast is kind of given me that awareness that, okay, just by doing something like this can help in some ways.
Yep.
I mean, just because I don't have the dollars to be able to put it in at this point in time doesn't mean that I can't kind of allow more people to actually do that for me.
Oh,
in that
absolutely!
sense.
Like you're opening up the narrative, and that's I think that's important, And I think as well, generally for all of us in society, I think we're hitting a tipping point on this question that I have asked myself: how much is enough?
Yeah.
Because we had COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID saw, not so much in Singapore because there's nowhere to move out to, but in a lot of other major cities, we had people forfeiting their expensive city rents and because they were working online and going for a simple life back on the land. It was happening a lot in Australia and in other major cities as well. And it had people really reevaluating too. And I think post-COVID it's continued as well with market instability, with all of the conflict, with the eco-unravelling that's quite apparent in the planet. People are really questioning purpose and the meaning of life. And that's why I think the timing of your podcast is fantastic. Like this sort of narrative and, well, how much is enough? And what lends your life meaning and what legacy are you leaving?
Yeah.
And I think these are quite powerful questions for people at the moment.
Indeed.
And I'm seeing that a lot in my client work.
Yeah.
It's almost like an existential thing. Like, okay, I've been on this sort of like, hamster wheel at work for years and years and years, but I'm still unhappy and I still feel like I should be doing something else.
Yeah.
And, so I think people are asking these quite big questions.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because, sometimes we do get, I mean, as business owners, we get so caught up in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
We wonder, okay, well, how are we going to make ends meet? Is it going to be a dry month? What's just going to happen? What if that happens? Blah, 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 blah. But then having these, I guess, outlets to do good, to make that donation, knowing that full well, I'm going to get involved in this particular thing, does kind of ease it up a little bit more, don't you think? It gives us a bit more direction.
Yeah, and it pulls you up above the parapet
Yes.
of the crunch and makes you sort of, have those broader questions about yourself and why you're doing it and how can you make it a win-win for more people.
True.
I think it's a better energy. It's more magnetic.
That is true. And now from your story, I'd like to also get your take on this. What do you think it's something that a small business owner can do to identify what impact they want to make on the world and how can they start?
Well, I mean, they can start in their back garden with their staff,
How does that work?
So, well, I think being aware of, I don't employ anyone, so I've got suppliers, but I run my own ship. But if you have a small team that you're working for, to make sure that they're very well cared for, and that can be in lots of different ways, obviously paying them well and making sure that they get the time that they need and having a compassionate culture for them so they feel safe and they feel loyal and so on. So I think you've got to start from the inside out.
It's all about culture, isn't it?
It is about culture, yeah. And it's about, when I worked in corporate, I used to run charity drives. I worked for a big listed property company. And that was one of the things that we did is I didn't come up with this, but I managed this. we gave all the staff a day off where we went and in organised teams and did charitable labour.
Oh.
So painted the walls of the kids' leukemia ward in the local hospital, or replanted, a garden in an aged home. And the employees got to nominate what they'd like to do. And then we'd organise teams, give them all a T-shirt, and everyone had a day off from work, from the office, where they went and actually did something with their hands. The team building and also the reputational value of doing something like that was massive. And, guaranteed if you've got a small team of people, some of them will be going into aged care homes and some of them will be volunteering. There will be. Yeah. And I think it's a matter of really highlighting, celebrating that and giving your employees the safety and the scope to be able to live altruistic lives themselves. That would be the starting point, I would say. And then, of course, it depends on what business you're in, obviously. But with my business, it lends itself really well to donating my services to other fundraisers. So I'm asked, there's a sort of fundraising seasons within Singapore, and we're coming up to one now, and I'll get multiple requests for a voucher for healing or a voucher for a meditation course, and I happily give those.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. And then whoever the organiser is, whether it's the American Club or one of the Melbourne Cup luncheon people or whatever.
So it's like a sponsorship almost, right? If you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean, this, again...
Easy to do.
Yeah, correct. So these are the things that I'm always trying to think about, because when we think about, it has to be making impact, it's like, okay, do I really want to be picking up garbage from the beach? Do I really want to be, going to an animal shelter? Yep. Do I want to be there with sick kids? There are some people who just don't resonate with these things. So
and there are a lot of people who do. So I'm with you. I'm not great with sick kids. I've got kids of my own, and I'm very deeply affected by that. Okay. So, but I happily support fundraisers and establishments that look after sick kids. But there's donating time, there's donating labour, there's donating your services and products. Like, you've got a popular podcast, you could donate 3-minute ads for local businesses.
Okay, that's happening. If you need this, if you're listening right now, let me know. Okay, I'd be more than happy to
do
throw some ads.
Yeah, do shout outs. that would be a fantastic way of generating some funds for charity, So I think you just have to be a bit creative and understand the value of what you've got.
Yeah, I mean, we're totally doing that. Seriously. Yeah. That's a great idea, and I'd love to do that. For every podcast episode moving forward, I would love to have a shout out to a charity or anything like that. If you want to work with me, I'd be more than happy to. Thank you very much.
Love it. On the spot. You weren't expecting that.
No, not at all. But that's the great thing about, whenever we have these conversations, there's bound to be great ideas and a lot of energy that comes out from it. And again, it's just all about how we can do some good, and good begets good, I suppose, if you wanted to call it that.
It does.
Yeah. And then, moving from this, we talked so much about the business of doing good. I also want to understand, apart from all these administrative things, right, that we talk about, can we explore the spirituality that comes with this set of actions of doing good?
It's a juicy topic. So in my understanding and my studies, of all the major sort of foundational world religions, and it'll be explained in different ways and in different degrees, but it's generally accepted in most spiritual frames that we are all refractions of one thing. So you and I are unique refractions of one living mind, or depending on your frame, you might call it God, or you might call it consciousness, or the God that you know. Let's just say that. So we are not separate. And To some degree, we can see some of that with quantum entanglement and some of that sort of gorgeous.
Sorry, pardon me. What's quantum entanglement? That sounds
spooky and scientific, doesn't it?
No, not really. It just sounds like having multiple affairs at one go and not knowing who's who anymore.
Let's not go there. You've just given me a visual now, and I need to get back to the science lab. So quantum entanglement it's all theoretical, of course, quantum science, but less so now. But it's the idea that as beings of organised information in the form of energy, we're all entangled in some way. So you and I are generating an entanglement by having a conversation. We can experience this somewhat, where you may have the thought of an old friend and then they'll message you.
Oh, yeah.
That happens, right?
Yeah.
And so there's an entanglement of some sort. So you're connected through thought, through energy, through your past, through your memories and so on. And we're all sort of like points within a big, vibrant, living web of energy and information. And therefore, we're all participating in each other's difficulties, challenges, victories, and loves and aggression and so on. And the beautiful Hawaiian blessing, Ho'oponopono, which is I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. It's super simple. But what the spiritual sort of foundation of that is that we are all interconnected. So it's a greeting in Hawaii. It was a traditional greeting. So there may not have been a beef between the island tribes, but that when they sort of landed on each other's beaches to do their trade or to have their strategic meetings around an island nation, that's how they greeted each other off the bat. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, just to clear the air. So if there was any harm done through this entanglement, either known or unknown, conscious or unconscious, it was taken responsibility for and it was dissipated so that they could continue to thrive as an island nation. And now Ho'oponopono is super popular in sort of New Age meditation and practices as well. I think you could even get a certificate in Ho'oponopono, which is get a certificate in everything now,
Seriously?
can't you? It's crazy. But that's the principle, is that whenever you have an unkind thought about someone, they are impacted at some level. Whenever you have a high intention for someone or a feeling of love towards someone, whether that's expressed or not, they are participating in some level. Where there is, and also we are contributing that to a collective field. And so you look at the world today, we've got a lot of conflict going on in the Middle East and in Cambodia, and we've got a lot of crazy politics going on at the moment, and we cannot not be affected by that as individuals. And spiritually, I believe our response to collective conflict is to start at home, start with yourself. Where are you holding conflict? Where are you holding a grudge? Where are you attached to righteousness? And find ways to let it go, find ways to take responsibility, find ways to say you're sorry, find ways to live in harmony. And it contributes to the collective. So if we extend that spiritual idea to altruism, it's very difficult for I believe spiritually aware people to live with a ton of money when down in the street from their condo is someone sleeping on the street. There's a dissonance there.
Yep.
And people with conscience must act. I feel they do. They're compelled to act to help in some way.
This is really interesting now that we're talking about this, because for me it's a bit of a contradiction to what I've been receiving, because from what you're saying is we are, again, responsible for doing these things, to be able to do good, create a society of good. And the irony is that people who believe in the Machiavellian thought process, it's going to be, you have to be cold and ruthless in order for you to be successful.
I'm not sure that holds anymore. You know, I feel like how the mainstream narrative on leadership has evolved from that now. You know, maybe not everywhere,
Right.
but if you look at the narrative, you know, and all of our friends that do podcasts, you know, in our little community that do podcasts with CEOs and on leadership and so on, I think there's a much broader understanding and a finer breed of leader now rising into organisations where, you know, compassion and safety and even a sort of an intuitive type of leadership is actually what produces the best results. And we certainly within the corporate space have a much better understanding of well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being. There's more investment put into programs and the well-being of employees. We've got a long way to go, but I'm really busy in that space. So I think we've got a better breed of leader. I would say though, in the 90s when I was in corporate, it was hardcore.
It was pretty cutthroat.
It was
right?
cutthroat. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to know that times have changed and
Slow.
but it's getting there,
Yep.
right? Because that thought process of having that shark mentality, if they wanted to call it that, you know, you have to be able to smell blood, you have to be able to go for it and all
Yep.
that. I think there's a time and a place for that. But there are also, I think in today's context, we don't need that much unless you're in a high conflict, high stress, high whatever environment that is required of that. It's the whole, you know, do you want to be a warrior in the garden or do you want to be a gardener in the war?
Yeah,
mentality.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, but it comes to, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with really sharp, ambitious, directed business activity.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be at the expense of others.
But that's the difference. If it's causing harm, it's going to create problems.
yeah.
And so there's a place for it, definitely. And but it doesn't. And I think interestingly, we've got a long way to go on the equality debate within the leadership realms of business and high business and industry. But I do feel that this is what the female leader brings in terms of balance as well. So hopefully we'll see a rebalancing of that as we see more women on boards and more women in leadership roles and so on. And that's happening.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on in your life right now, what you're going to be doing in the future.
Oh, okay. I'm building memberships, and this is part of my evolution of my business, and it's a way for me to get my content to more people around the world in an organised way. So 2 years ago, I launched the Spirited Living membership. Last year, I launched Spirited Business membership, which is a group coaching container for people in businesses like mine, so to help other people, basically. And so my focus now, I've got that down now, like I've got the tech down, I've got the comms down. It took a little while. I threw heaps of content at members first, and they were like, whoa, too much. So I realised less is actually more. So I've learned a bit about how a membership community works and what's preferred and how to work with time zones. So now it's about growing those. And I'm revamping my Spirited Business membership. I'm going to open that up more widely. I have a goal of a third membership, which is for caretakers, guardians and teachers of children to bring meditation and mindfulness practices, guided practices, content and craft to children, and that'll be in 2026. So they're all named after my book, which is Spirited. So Spirited Living, Spirited Business, Spirited Kids, and then further down the line, Spirited Mums. So there's a lovely portfolio of little businesses that are bubbling along and growing there. I'm working on my first novel.
Ooh.
So it's, of course, got spiritual themes. It's got lovely eco themes in it. And there's a lot of the learning that I've done under shamanic teachers and our connection with the planet and our respect and our relationship with the planet.
We've got a segment that we always do at the end of the podcast, which is called the Epic Questionnaire. It's 10 questions.
Awesome.
Rapid fire. You've probably never seen these. And for those who are listening, these may be a little different from the ones that we used to, because I thought, hey, after 80 episodes, I think it's about time we change the questions. Okay.
Yep.
So, all right. So, Dani, you're the first one.
Bring it on.
Do this. Let's go. So, give me one word that you love.
Cupcake.
One word that you strongly dislike.
Literally.
What sparks joy in the work that you do?
Seeing people have breakthroughs.
What is your routine like for peak performance daily?
Definitely meditate. I move every day and I meditate every single morning when I get up.
What do you do when negativity or sadness hits you?
I examine why it's hitting me. So I go in, and I don't tend to dwell. So I just let it move through. I might move my body. That's not a very short answer, is it? But if negativity hits me, the first thing I do is I look at what edge is it hitting in me.
Okay, that's great. If you could have a conversation with one person, fictional, non-fictional, dead or alive, who would that be?
Oh, I've got a dinner party guest list for this, actually.
So you're going to have the whole dinner party of the dead?
Yeah, dinner party, dead peeps dinner party. Currently, I have been circling back a lot into some of the beautiful sayings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who's recently passed. So I think I'd probably like to have a chat with him. I love Rumi. I'd have a chat with Rumi too. They'd be my two, and maybe David Bowie. Oh. They'd be my three top picks for a quick chat at the moment.
Interesting. David Bowie as well.
Yes.
Okay. What's a phrase or quote that has left the biggest impact on you?
It is what it is.
What's a harsh lesson that life has taught you?
Well, both my children have had heart surgery when they were younger, and the lesson that it taught me was the impact of having a spiritual practice. So they both had surgery exactly 10 years apart. When my son had open heart surgery at the age of 4, I was catatonically stressed and freaked out about it. Over that decade, I built my spiritual practice. So when my daughter, 10 years later, was diagnosed and needed heart surgery, it was a completely different experience. There was gratitude, there was laughter, there wasn't stress. It was a completely different experience for her and for me. So that decade of building a spiritual muscle was evidenced through the same experience 10 years apart with each of my kids.
Wow.
Yeah. Weren't expecting that, were you?
No, not at all. It's a lot for me to think about as well. Okay, so what happens to your business or work after you have moved on?
That's a good question. I think I'll license my content. So hopefully my content will live on and other meditation teachers and healers will use it. The books, hopefully, will live on. The podcast, hopefully, will live on. And the membership, I think, will live on in the hearts of the members that have experienced all the courses and the beautiful breakthroughs and stuff. So I think the business will live on either within the people that have engaged or within the content products.
Last question. How do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy?
A good person who held others up.
Not kept them waiting, right?
Not kept them waiting or stood on their heads.
Okay. Jokes aside, I'm sure that everybody understands what you mean. I just take things too literally sometimes, and that is me. Well, thank you so much, Dani, for being on the podcast. It's been wonderful. So for those who have been watching all the way through or listening all the way through, don't forget to check out Dani's website, links in the bio. And at the same time, please subscribe to the Modern Crone podcast as well. And to what I understand, coming season is with witches.
And the current season is.
The current season is all about witches.
And it's gone viral. So there's a lot of interest in people who live the life of the witch. But Edric, thank you so much for having me on Epic Podcast. I've loved this chat and I hope it inspires lots of people to think about how they can give to the community around them. Good on you.
Oh, well, with more help from people like yourselves, of course, it's going to work out. All right. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Edric.